I really hate it where they're like, what do you think? Do you think Joe Biden is a lizard person or not? Or like, do you think that trans women are women or not? It's like, dude, I'm trying to run a B2B SaaS company, man.
But why does it seem absurd? I think people are looking to leadership as these people lead them in their life.
I reject that I lead any of these people in their life. I just flat out reject that. Your church leader, your friends, your family, your spouse, your kids. That's who I hope leads you in your life. If I'm leading you in your life, we've already got problems.
I actually had an interview with someone fresh out of college, and she wanted 120K. That's what a lot of the Gen Z are expecting. So I think these business owners are taking a pause, saying, okay, well, hold on. Let's look into what AI can do for me instead of hiring an employee that costs double what it cost 10 years ago.
Happy Friday, and a quick heads up on today's episode. It's a little different from my usual content. I'm trying something out. It's a weekly roundtable. Today, I'm joined by Chris Munn, who's the owner and operator of Pavago, which is a healthcare staffing company, as well as a commercial cleaning company based in Florida. I'm also joined by Trenton Hughes, who's the founder of Tribe, which is a peer group for hundreds of entrepreneurs around the country. The idea is that this roundtable will allow us an opportunity to talk about what we're seeing in the small business world and entrepreneurship in general. We recorded this one on September 11th, which was the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So it's a little bit heavier. We talk openly about it in the beginning. I promise you won't be triggered by any of the stances, but we kind of dove into whether or not business owners should take political stances when employees and customers are expecting it. We also dive into the Fed rate cuts. We also talk about what that means for buying and selling businesses, as well as how AI is changing the hiring landscape. So this is an experiment. I think you're really going to like it, but I would love to hear from you. So drop your comments below and let's get into it. Yesterday was a weird day for me to see Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And all I could think about was the fact that this 31-year-old young man, whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, was murdered in front of his wife and his two kids. And the fact that they're going to grow up without a dad. There's just like a visceral reaction to the fact that somebody has gotten so animated and so angry that they choose to go to violence as opposed to debating ideas, which is kind of what our country was founded on. And I've also been thinking about kind of what this means for the next day, week, month, year, because I go onto Twitter or I go onto social media and it's all anybody is talking about. Some people are like, well, congratulations, you just radicalized me. Some people on the left are celebrating the fact that this guy was murdered. Does there seem to be so much more political violence? We had an assassination and kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. We had the president survive an assassination attempt, state legislators in Wisconsin that were murdered. And now Charlie Kirk gets murdered. It's like, what was going on? It feels like there's a visceral reaction to this. And I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs in particular, like taking a stand. And like employees want to see their owners or entrepreneurs issue a message or take a stand. But then you see the backlash where somebody does, quote unquote, take a stand and Bud Light is boycotted because they hired this Dylan Mulvaney, or the MyPillow company aligns really closely with Trump. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are probably sitting there like, not just scared about the future for themselves and their family, but also like, how do I navigate these waters as an entrepreneur? How do you navigate these waters moving forward?
I actually didn't really know who he was, but seeing him as a dad and a husband and someone that was just trying to have conversation, controversial or not, really hit me. And I think that one of the things that was striking is, social media was hard to be on yesterday because of that. And they kind of evolved quickly from shock to uncertainty to anger. A lot of business owners that I know in all kinds of different businesses, almost every single person seemed to come out and say something. But what surprised me was to see how harsh some of the stances were. You've just turned me into a radicalized right. We're celebrating. Back in like 2020, we had Black Lives Matter and we had some pretty heavy political movements happen back then. We started to see businesses take stands and business owners take stands onto different sides. And it really polarized and either drew people in or pushed people out. And I can go into some stories myself of, some things that we dealt with as business and as a business owner for employees and customers when they wanted to see us take stands on certain things.
Especially with companies that are like founder-led brands, right? Where like the founder is out.
And almost every company needs to be that or is that. Like there's a CEO or a founder or someone at the top that really is that the face of that company. Almost all of these people have opinions. Whether or not they express those opinions is a different thing, but it feels like we're about to see that expressed from here.
Chris and I have talked about this a lot. Like on the one side of things, I do want to see someone who's a leader stand up and say, this is what I think, or this is what I believe, right? But then the flip is, I love talking to people of all different walks of life.
Yep.
And so I don't like the idea of siloing into, well, I just go to Twitter for my conservative takes, and I go to Blue Sky for my liberal takes, and I go to, this business for conservative stuff and that business for liberal stuff. Like I think that stuff is bad for our country. But I mean, Chris, you're incredibly thoughtful about the stuff. You read a ton. How do you think about just messaging around this, or like, how are you addressing it with your teams?
I just go about business as business. And to me, like what happened yesterday really has nothing to do with that. There's never been a time in this country that we haven't been violent. People will say, oh, this will radicalize me. I don't believe it. And that has nothing to do with my businesses. So I have very strong opinions about things that happen, but I don't really share. If my team asks, I'll share it with them. Listen, I don't make it a secret, but I don't lead with that. It's not my job. People on my team can vote for who they want to, believe who they want to, watch what YouTube videos they want. Just come to work and do a good job.
Have you set it up that way? Has that been just your company culture from day one?
Yeah. I mean, I think we get aligned around tasks and goals, right? And those tasks and goals usually have nothing to do with what's going on in the cultural climate.
What do you do if you have an employee who's super political, posts a lot, talks with other people a lot about it? What do you do there?
I wouldn't discourage it, to be honest. If people want to be political in the workplace, I don't discourage it. It's just not my thing. I feel like maybe I'm libertarian in that regards. Like if you want to talk politics at work, doesn't make me a difference. As long as you don't make people feel ostracized or discriminated against. What do you guys do in your business? Like Trent, you've been in some of these. Like, have you had employees that want you to take a stand or be thoughtful about that stuff?
Yeah, not currently, but I've had two different businesses where I've had this type of thing come up, and one of them was George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. We were like over 1,000 employee company, and we had all hands meetings with over 1,000 people on those meetings, and we have an open forum in that, and they can submit questions. And so we had dozens of questions of what our stance was on it. Everyone can see it. We just said we're supportive of Black Lives Matter and completely against any sort of police brutality. And it was just the stance that made the most sense to us and was true to what we felt.
Did you feel pressured into making that statement at all?
When everyone is saying, it was for sure on everyone's mind at that moment. It was a very big moment.
You didn't feel pressure in the sense like you didn't believe the words you were saying. You just felt like, oh, I have to say something because people are asking for it.
We came at it with conviction of what we believe. But yeah, we did feel pressured to say something. And this is a point where almost every business I felt was saying something as well. But we were in a meeting where they're asking us to say something. I did have one more instance happen.
I've known a bunch of business owners during that time who made statements that didn't agree with the statements they made. They were just like, oh, it seems like we should make a statement about this. And then I'm like, what are you dude, you've never been super animated about these types of issues. To me, it felt disingenuous. It's like, you need to be able to release a statement that is genuine to what you think and what you believe.
Yeah.
It's probably worse to release something that you don't actually think or believe, because over time, people just see the inconsistency.
And I will say, like, that was a very emotionally charged moment for a lot of people. It was for me. And there's different points where I have felt like, man, I would like to take bigger stances here, but I also understand like business is business, and these do live separately most times. I did have one more.
It's just hard not to say anything.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling right now. They're saying like, I need to say something. And I guarantee over the next weeks and months, we're about to see a lot more people take pretty harsh stances one way or another.
It's the leader's job to acknowledge that people are being emotional, right? Like it's an emotional time. So whether, Trump gets shot or like if God forbid, a president died or something, really wouldn't matter what side of the aisle you were on. It's like, this is an emotional time for people.
Yeah.
And I think you can make the space to acknowledge that. I don't believe that because, and maybe this is the idolization of business leaders in America, like why are we even asking what the business leader thinks? But it's not my job to be the spokesperson for our political stance on our business. Like the business doesn't have a political stance. I have a political stance, but my political stance has nothing to do with the business. But I will acknowledge that if people come to work and are feeling like, man, it's just a tough day, like because of X, Y, and Z, what happened, even if that doesn't affect me, I think we should make the space to acknowledge that and acknowledge that people are going through something and maybe feeling some kind of way and maybe just want to talk about it, right? To me, that is the leader's job. It's not my job to be the voice of my opinion.
I just look at the data and it's like Gen Z and millennials are 2 to 3 times more likely to want to hear their leaders say something about what's going on, right? And or take a stand, quote unquote. For us, it was a little bit different than your experience, Trenton. We didn't have 1,000 employees, but we had between 100 and 200 when all of this stuff was happening in 2020. But we had to look at it of what do we talk to people about? It's our core values, and our core values were among them empathy, right? And so we talked about it from that lens, where it's like, look, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
We empathize. Please be kind, respect each other, et cetera. In the instance with the vaccine mandate, and we were a healthcare company, it was like, Medicare's mandating this for us. If you can't accept that, we will help you exit the organization. But like, what were we going to do at that point? We weren't in a place to take any type of stand against that. So anyway, I just think they're just hard situations to navigate, because as a human, you want to react. But as a business owner, you're like, how does this affect things downstream?
I had one more too, that this was our influencer and sports agency, and we represented different influencers that had big amounts of influence, millions of followers. One of them was trans, and they were upset because this is a time where they felt like trans rights and LGBTQ rights were being really pushed to the limits. And they were upset that some companies were choosing to take neutral stances on this. And then they got upset with us for not advocating for them because of those neutral stances. We had to decide ourselves, do we want to stay neutral or not? A lot of our employees were LGBTQ. In the entertainment industry, that tends to be the case. And then a lot of our influencers were as well. Of course, we are pro LGBTQ. We have tons of these people on our staff and that are clients. But at the same time, we don't think that every business needs to be political. Like, a business is being neutral should be okay. Like, businesses shouldn't have to pick one side or the other. And so we kind of took that stance as well. Like, of course, we're supportive of LGBTQ, but we're also supportive of businesses not being political. And we ourselves are not necessarily going to be super political as well, because we're a business. We're not a political organization. And what happened is we lost that influencer. The influencer talked about it. Lost some more influencers. But I think most people understood where we were coming from. We definitely had some employees on our side that were LGBTQ that wanted to see what we were going to say as well. I think that they liked the way that we handled it, but it was a tricky one, because you're right. I think your employees and even your customers sometimes want to know where you stand on things. And I'm a big believer in alignment, though. Like, you'll find the alignment with the people that align best with you. And if they need to see that you're political, then they're probably not going to align. And if you are super political and they align with you, then great. I think that that's where businesses need to do best.
Do you think Joe Biden is a lizard person or not? Or like, do you think that trans women are women or not? And it's like, dude, I'm trying to run a B2B SaaS company, man.
I'm trying to get you guys paid. I'm trying to get everyone fed.
Not everything has to be political, and we don't have to agree on everything. Some of my closest and best friendships are with people that I don't agree with on a lot of things. Like, why is that the top thing that we're identifying as?
If I was giving any advice here, though, having come from this, and Chris, I think, nailed it, like, emotions are going to be high right now. And I think us as business leaders just need to be really thoughtful with how we approach this and approach politics in general, because it's going to have ramifications. And I don't know that that's the place of a business to get involved. And so I think it's best to really just come at it and think before we talk sometimes.
I don't think it's bad. Look, if you're coming out and taking a stand and you're a business owner and you want to stand for something, like, more power to you. I just don't think that you should feel pressured into saying or doing something that you probably may or may not feel a certain way on, because it's, over the long run, people are going to see an incongruence.
Well, whether or not you feel that way, a lot of businesses and people are forced into it. And so what do you do with that? And then you not taking a stance is also taking a stance.
That's why we get paid so much money as entrepreneurs, though, you know?
The buck stops with the entrepreneur is why you are the leader. And I mean, I think it says something about society that maybe there's a moral vacuum, and now we're seeking business owners or business leaders for moral compass advice, which seems absurd to me. Not the group that I would tag for.
But why does it seem absurd,
morality.
actually? Because I think people are looking to leadership as like these people lead them in their life and maybe are the biggest influence in their leadership perspective for their life. Do you care if you had a manager or leader that you reported up to and they were one way or another? Would you care yourself?
I reject that I lead any of these people in their life. I just flat out reject that. So like your church leader, your friends, your family, your spouse, your kids, like that's who I hope leads you in your life. If I'm leading you in your life, we've already got problems. But to answer your second point, I had a manager. I go first day, he tells me where he lived, but you know, I still work there. Like, and obviously I'm not Jewish, but I still work there. And like, but I had an opinion of him. Sure. Like, would he be my friend? Probably not, but I don't mind working for him. Like that doesn't, I don't feel like I'm losing any of my morality by doing that.
Yeah.
He, like I say, he's not my leader, he's just my manager.
And maybe it goes back to what Nick was saying, like the values of the person will speak to this more than their political stances. You know, how do they treat you? How do they treat the others?
If you're going to let one decision define me, like whether or not I responded the way that you wanted me to respond exactly in that moment, and then you leave, like I don't want to be around you. Like if you can't take the long arc of our relationship and see like, oh, he is thoughtful, or, oh, you know, and then weigh that against maybe, you know, how I do or don't take a stand, then you're not the type of person that I want in my company. You're not the type of person I want to work with long term. I'm okay with certain people leaving. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of encouraging entrepreneurs who might be feeling a certain way or not. Like you don't have to do anything that doesn't feel right to you.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see how this plays out over the coming weeks and months, especially with people going to their favorite social media platforms to continue to reverberate.
They stay off the internet. That's
Chris's
the moral
philosophy
of the story.
Okay, we had some other things that happened this week. Chris, it looks like we've had a rate cut, and I want you to kind of just go through what's going on right now and what does this mean for small businesses? Like, does the Fed even matter for small business?
Yes, it matters a lot for small business. So a little background, we could start with like 2020 during COVID. Rates were effectively zero, which means banks can borrow money at essentially no interest and then loan it to you at a small percentage higher than that. And low interest rates mean lower debt payments, and debt payments go towards things like mortgages and business loans and car loans and all sorts of stuff. And then after COVID, we obviously had a lot of inflation, and the Fed has tried to keep rates high to tame inflation, keep inflation in check. So now I think inflation is 2.9%, which the goal is always 2%. So I think we'll see rates get cut more aggressively when it gets closer to 2, but it hasn't been 2 in a long time. So,
hey, I don't know if you remember this, but when we started this podcast, we entered into a social contract. I would spend time, energy, and money producing this podcast, interviewing these individuals and giving you insights into how to build, buy, start, grow your business. And you would like, subscribe, and leave me a 5-star review. Now, out of that, we both get to talk to really cool people and hear really cool insights. We both get a ton of value. But I just want to help you keep your word. So would you do me a favor? Will you go leave a 5-star review for me on Apple or Spotify? It would really help. And if you want, even share this with a friend.
we did have a rate cut in September, but we're still super high rates compared to the last 5 years or so, 10 years, 20 years, super high cuts compared to the last 20 years. That affects businesses in a few ways. So I think people going out to buy or sell businesses are seeing different valuations because of the debt service. if someone goes out and bought a business in 2015 and their interest rate was 5% and now the interest rate is 10%, that could be tens of thousands of dollars a month in increased interest for that business. So what does that mean? That just means effectively I can pay you less money, Nick, for your business than I could 10 years ago because I have to pay the bank a lot more. So Nick might be saying, hey, I want, this multiple on my business. And now I can't pay that because I can't service the debt with the high interest rates. So there's a lot of political pressure to lower the interest rates because it will spur asset buying and selling again. But if we still have inflation, that is from an economic standpoint, that is usually not a positive thing. So inflation needs to get in check, and then hopefully rates can get cut.
I bought a business in 2020 when rates were effectively zero. And when you go through the process of buying a business, you have to go through underwriting. And in order for the bank to give you money to buy that business, they've got to underwrite that business. And they use this almost universally, this one metric called DSCR, your debt service coverage ratio. What that means is if a business is doing $500,000 a year in profit, the bank wants to see at least, we'll call it 1.2 times the amount of profit as they do debt. So in this scenario, let's just make it easy. The max debt that they would lend is $400,000 on a business doing $500,000 a year in profit. And then we know the interest rate, we know the term, we know the amortization period, et cetera. With that $400,000, it's like a max amount that they'll loan. And so in that instance, when rates are near zero, they'll lend you a lot more money because the debt service coverage ratio is a lot better. Because you're paying less debt, right? Well, when the interest rate goes up, now all of a sudden, the amount that you can afford in debt to buy that business goes way down. And so what does that mean? Well, in the early days in 2020, the reason we saw asset prices go out of control is because we could get a lot of money from the banks because interest rates were really low. We've now seen asset prices contract because they raised rates significantly because people couldn't afford that debt service coverage ratio. And it has shown up in the data. So the SBA releases this data in the last year. The amount of delinquencies on SBA loans has increased dramatically. I think it's like a 20-year high from where it's been, just because these individuals who bought businesses kind of at the max of their scale, all of a sudden now, because the interest rates are floating, interest rate goes up, payment goes up, they can't afford it. What happens? The bank forecloses on those businesses. We've definitely seen some of that happening right now. So for small businesses in particular, the SBA is really important, which I just talked about, lines of credit, but then also generally speaking in the economy, being able to hire, being able to find more workers. There's definitely a lot going on. So I am curious to see though what happens with the Fed, because our unemployment has been historically low. We're still at historic lows, which is interesting because I still feel like when I talk to small business owners, I mean, Trenton, we talk about this in Tribe, it's not like they're out there saying like, oh man, the hiring pool's fantastic. Oh, it's so great. Like they're still complaining about finding good employees. And you would think that would be the opposite. If like unemployment was so low, you would think that everybody's like in the spot that they should be, doing a really good job. But that's kind of been the opposite experience.
Well, and then this is the funny thing about the way the economy works. Asset prices have just been ripping, right? Like assets are going up like crazy. So the stock market's all-time high. I think the easiest way to think about this is housing. Like everybody probably knows somebody who's like, dude, I bought my house for $450K and now it's worth $900K. And like, they think that's awesome. Not awesome. Like not awesome. That's not awesome. So, and the reason that's not awesome is because when asset prices go up that much, the only winners are the asset holders. Everyone not holding an asset, everything is insanely more expensive for them. And so because things are so expensive for everyone else, I think that's partly why we see low unemployment. It's like, dude, I have to take a job. Everything is so expensive. Asset prices include groceries. They include cars. They include everything. So I think the economy is very interesting right now because it seems like for the asset owners, which unfortunately is a very small percentage of Americans, they're like, man, everything's up and to the right. And for people on the other side of that coin, they're like, dude, I can't afford anything anymore. And so I think you just really see a dichotomy it's like a tale of two economies, really. It's just some people are sitting here like, man, my house tripled in value. And other people are just like, I'm never going to be able to afford a house ever again.
Real wages have stayed flat over the last 5 years, but everything else, food, groceries, fuel, whatever, has gone up like 20%.
Yep.
So you've got the same amount of money effectively, but
No buying power.
everything's up. Yeah, there's no buying power. So it is just really weird, because at the same time, you have 84% of entrepreneurs who say they're optimistic about the future. 84%. That's a high optimism rate.
But they are in the asset owner class.
Sure, they are in the asset owner class.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're also in the business of hiring people. You would think they'd have
Sure.
a better pulse on how people are feeling out in the actual field. I don't know, Trent, what are you seeing within Tribe?
I mean, we talked to a lot of business owners, and the jobs numbers that we're seeing come out and get revised are being revised down, really low amount of jobs being created. What I'm also seeing is that business owners are taking a pause for the most part on hiring right now as they try to figure out how to implement AI into their businesses more. So like, that's the worry that we hear employees talking about and people talking about, oh, AI will take jobs. I don't know that a lot of business owners for sure know how to do it yet, but I do know that they're looking at how they do it. Like, I don't know very many people that are out there like, oh, I'm on a hiring spree right now trying to go find a bunch of people. Unless you're an AI company, they are, and they're throwing these crazy bonuses at people. Maybe that will stop here soon.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's throwing out MBA level contracts to people.
Insane.
More
It's like, he signed Do Kwon for 5 years and $350 million breaking on ESPN. You're like, what?
Crazy.
These contracts are nuts.
Which is
Crazy.
entertainment itself. And I actually wonder, like I wonder how much business will become the new form of entertainment, because I think it could, and I think it will. But yeah, on the hiring side, I think we're going to continue to see pretty stagnant numbers. I don't know that we're going to see the layoffs yet. I just don't know that we're going to see much hiring happening. And that's what I'm hearing across the board, is like people are looking at how they can be a little more resourceful and scrappy. And I think there's a lot of reasons to it. I think that the rates go into that too. Like, every business owner's costs are way higher as well. And if employee costs are going up because employees want to be paid higher, these business owners are taking a pause saying, okay, well, hold on, let's look into what AI can do for me, instead of going and hiring an employee that costs now double what it cost 10 years ago. I actually had an interview with someone not long ago, like a few months back, for a different company that fresh out of college, she lived in New York, and she wanted $120K out of college. And like, I think that that's what a lot of the Gen Z are expecting and thinking. So I think that that's another part of this equation, is that it is way more expensive. The employees aren't looking to settle for some, average paying job. And then the business owners can't afford what the employees are hoping for. So you're in this weird middle ground right now, where I think we're going to see a lot more AI adoption because employers are forced to. What will happen though, and then on the other end, you have these employees who are looking at their options. So they're either moving out of state, other places, or they're looking at becoming influencers or starting their own side hustles and becoming their own employers. I think that business ownership is at an all-time high right now. And I think it will continue to be. And business ownership might mean something different. It might just mean a solopreneur who figures out a way to make 100K or 200K. But they have way more options than they ever had before as well.
Well, the other side of that's really interesting as well, because at least in some of this data, 20 to 30% of listed small businesses are actually completing sales. Sellers want 20 to 40% more than current market offers. So like, there's still this huge gap between what sellers want and what buyers are willing to pay. I just had Jackie Hirsch on my podcast, who's a broker, and her opinion is like, it's always a buyer's market or seller's market. There's always people who are buying and selling companies, but she lives in Florida. When you look at the rest of the country, however, stuff is sitting on the market longer. Sellers are not necessarily getting what they wanted. And I think even anecdotally, we've had some conversations with sellers who are sharing some of the stories, right?
Yeah. We've heard people that were very interested in selling their business and got offers. One of the things I think people overlook is that a lot of times when you sell your business, they want you to stay on for an additional year, 2 years, 3 years. And the sellers aren't really hoping to do that. They want to walk away clean. But I think that the terms that the buyers are wanting versus the terms that the sellers are wanting are distancing themselves from each other. And so, yeah, I know of 4 different entrepreneurs that have walked away from deals and no longer plan to sell anytime soon, but we're trying to.
How big were those businesses?
I think that all of them were probably around $1 million to $2 million in revenue a year, somewhere around there, hovering around that.
There's this saying in economics, which is prices are sticky. The same goes for asset values, right? It's like, well, 5 years ago, my $1 to $2 million business was worth $5 million. You're telling me it's worth 2 today? Oh, I don't think so. So like there really has been this just weird dynamic because of the way that asset prices went. Chris, when did you buy your company, your commercial cleaning company in Florida?
First in 2020 and then second in 2022.
How have you seen asset prices change in that market?
My debt service is probably $5,000 to $6,000 a month more than it was when I bought it.
Oh,
Dang.
And so let's assume the business is the exact same as it was 5 years ago. I'm going to get less money for it than when I bought it, right? Because people can't afford to pay what I paid in 2020. And so when that happens, like there just becomes less activity, right? And I think that's what the Fed rate really is dictating. Is like, hey, if there's less activity, asset prices will come down, inflation will come down, because there's less activity. And I think maybe during COVID, we just had too much activity. Like there was too much buying and selling back and forth.
We are in a weird place though, because they haven't lowered rates for, is it 2 years? I can't remember when the rate cycle.
They just lowered them in September, but that was the first time in like, 2 years.
I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
When theoretically you would have seen a lot of the negative consequences of it playing out quickly. We had so much money left over from COVID. Like there was just so much liquidity in the system. I try not to be a doomsdayer, but I'm like, man, are we just going to hit the wall in the next few months and just realize everything caught up to us that we've kind of been putting off?
If you were a recession predictor, there are a lot of recession predictors on Twitter, surprisingly. You would have been wrong every month.
yeah.
So
Ray Dalio has predicted 7 of the last 2 recessions. So he's batting
what, freaking 500%. It's amazing. There's just a big gap. And like we talked about, just in the housing industry, because it's the easiest to explain. When your neighbor says their house went up double or triple, you just have to think about what does that mean for your kid? Like, are they going to be able to afford that house? And when there's a big gap between what people can afford and then the asset owners don't want to sell because they're like, no, my house is worth 800 grand. And the people that don't own assets don't want to buy because they're like, I can't afford 800 grand. And you're seeing the same thing in the small business market.
I was telling a lot of people, and most people who listen to this podcast, when the big beautiful bill passed, I'm like, it's freaking great for me. It's only going to be accretive for my assets, right?
Yep.
Now, if the things that they say that are going to play out, it could be great for everybody. But really the ones who are like highest risk are our employees, like the people who work for us. So like, what does that mean for us a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, as the rest of that kind of really hits them? And that's the thing I'm still trying to work through, just trying to figure out what does the end of the year look like? Because since COVID, it just feels like everything has been different than what anybody expected. I wish I was giving like a better, more hopeful outlook for entrepreneurs, but I'm just like, man, I just don't know.
My prediction is that a lot more competition will pop up because I think a lot of these people that are employees are looking at, I don't have an ability as an employee to go make the amount of money that I'm hoping to make. And the only way that I could potentially do that is become a business owner. I think we've seen business ownership just spike and it's massive. And a lot of solopreneurs, like, as I said, I think that it's going to lead to opportunities though. One of them, as I kind of alluded to, I'm curious to get you guys' take on this. One of those opportunities being in media. I think that movies and movie stars and TV for a long time really had its moment. Obviously, social media is where a lot of attention is. And I think that the content around business and like shows around business and podcasts around business are going to continue to go up because there's a lot more interest now in business ownership than there ever was. Your business partner, Chris Kerner, has exploded because people are interested in starting businesses. And there's a lot of other people, Cody Sanchez. If you go look at the top 100 podcasts on Spotify, there's a ton of them that are about business ownership, but I don't think that was ever the case before. And so
I'm biased with Chris because I know Chris so well. I think he's the best of the bunch, but he's like very 0 to 1. Don't use a ton of money, don't go into a ton of debt. Cody Sanchez is more like, I'll show you how to buy your first business. But yeah, it's just a lot of, hey, how to get into entrepreneurship type of content. That's true. And they're not slowing down. They're growing like crazy.
It's very interesting because obviously we can, as business owners, people think that we have like an unlimited amount of money, but we can only pay our employees out of our profits. And if we pay them out of our profits, and that's not enough money for them to, live whatever life they want to live. It could just be getting by, or it could be buying a house or whatever. They will have to become business owners, right? Like, I think they will see that as a viable path to getting what they need. And so maybe, yeah, content is something you can do on your own. And we probably will see a lot more of that, because I do think if you don't, I don't mean us as business owners, but in general and individually, but like, if we don't take care of our employees, and that means giving them enough of a wage to feel like they have a respectable life, then they have to look at alternatives. And I think the solopreneur thing is one.
What's really interesting is, and you guys might not know this, Charlie Kirk. So I've actually listened to quite a bit of Charlie Kirk stuff. One of my favorite pastimes. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to listen to, this was my like news radio lineup 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I had Ben Shapiro, Glenn Beck, and Mark Levin. It's just like, that was just like the time of day. Before I was podcasting. You guys know who they are?
I don't know who the last guy is.
Yeah, I don't.
I know who
Mark
the first
Levin.
two are.
Oh man. Yeah, Mark Levin he's pretty far. He's pretty far to the right. So anyways, they're very conservative, very, very conservative. And I'd get my news there. And then I would go and listen to Ron Reagan, who is Ronald Reagan's son, Rachel Maddow, eventually the Pod Save America guys, very left. Just because I like to listen to both sides. And I'm like, okay, where does the truth maybe kind of fall? I just like to hear arguments from both sides of people. Anyways, so I listened to a lot of stuff that Charlie Kirk would say, because I frankly, I did think he was more thoughtful than many of the people on the right. And he has this interview with Tucker Carlson where he says the thing he was most concerned about moving forward is the ability for Americans, young Americans, working class Americans, to achieve the American dream, because the purchasing power of the dollar is diminishing. There is a gap between the ultra wealthy and people who are working on the front line. And if we can't solve that gap, then those people who are not getting it, one of the options is to become entrepreneurs themselves, Chris, but then the other option is to vote for it themselves, like to vote people into power who will then redistribute the wealth that they want if they're not given the opportunities that they need. So he was like, I'm like singularly focused on figuring out how to create more opportunity for the rising generations. And that, I think, is something that we have as entrepreneurs. We can't necessarily affect policy, but be thinking about, like, how do we create opportunity for people within our companies so that, we don't lose them to entrepreneurship, or so that we don't necessarily lose them to other things. It's just an interesting thing that it's happening. It's reality.
We do our best to make money, and in making that money, we create jobs for people, right? And like, that's the beauty of America. Anybody could start something up and provide jobs, and now people have jobs. Yeah. And like, that's awesome. This ties back to the race thing. If too much of the money and the wealth ends up in the hands of the asset owner, and then there's a big gap between the asset owner and, let's call it, the liability holder, then you will see it become more difficult to get the valuations that you want, simply because there's nobody to buy it, right? Like, these people can't afford it anymore. And then it creates a market that gets stagnant, which there's nothing worse than that. And so that's the problem.
And then you see people who I'm seeing a ton more of, who are like, screw it, I'm not going to buy one of these boomer businesses. I'll just start one from scratch. Like, it's cheaper for me to just start from scratch. And then they're not able to sell that business, and it's just gone, right?
They're right.
I've seen that a ton more. People getting into entrepreneurship, they're like, wait, I'll spend $5 million, or I could invest like 50 grand and I could get a business maybe half the size. Yeah, I think I'll go invest 50 grand and just do it on my own. So to your point, Trenton, it's like, yeah, people are becoming a lot more entrepreneurial. They're just starting up. They're figuring it out in those industries that they don't need to spend a ton of money to buy a business in. For me, it's even been a weird shift.
I will say there's a lot of different ways to think about this too, though. As a business owner, the top businesses are the ones that do hire the best and have the best teams. And you're only going to hire the best and have the best teams if you can incentivize them. And so as a business owner, like, what's back in your control? You have to think about that. Like, you have to be able to hire great people, pay them well if you want to actually win, and, attract them in ways that aren't, maybe other people aren't doing. But some of the levers that you might be able to pull to do that when it's an economy that's a little bit weird: pricing, something for you to think about, value adds, positioning, all these different things that you can control have downstream effects for you to be able to hire better people. And if you can't take care of people, yeah, they're going to look at going elsewhere, and you're not going to thrive as a business. And I think that the companies that are doing the best are the ones that have the most resources right now, which are able to go hire and pay $100 million bonuses. And then everyone's like, I want to work there because they're paying so well, and it only attracts top talent. Meanwhile, all the talent gets pulled away from these average or bad businesses too. So I think that as a business owner, you need to be thoughtful there as well about how do I make sure I continue to get the best talent I can possibly get, and what do I need to do upstream in order to make sure that happens.
That's interesting. I am starting to see a shift in the way people are viewing AI in particular. Like they used to kind of view it as, oh, AI is going to come in, I'm going to eliminate all the jobs and I'm going to make a bunch more money. And now it's like, no, AI is going to do certain things. I still need really good people. And now AI is like a multiplier as opposed to a people eliminator. So it's almost like when you hired a 10x employee in the past, they were 10x. Now with AI, they're a 100x employee. So it becomes even that much more important.
Again, we see a lot of different businesses within Tribe. The best business owners I see are doing one thing, and not to say the worst, but the ones that aren't thinking super smart are doing a different thing. So the ones that aren't necessarily thinking smart in my mind are the ones looking at how do I go cut costs now? How do I go eliminate all costs here to boost my profit? Versus the ones that I think are going to really win are looking at how do I basically do what Ford did and create this assembly line that makes us go 10 times faster. And so they're looking at how do I keep my current team, but also add in AI and maybe even boost my team with AI to just do 80 times more than we ever did before and outcompete our competition, who's meanwhile just thinking about how do I cut my costs. There's two different trains of thought, and I think that one's clearly going to win in the long run.
Interesting. What are you seeing, Chris?
Well, yeah, we have a recruiting business, and that's a main core principle that we try to explain. So we help people hire offshore, but the way we think about it is like you have your 10x employees, right, Nick, that you just talked about. Those sit at the top of the pyramid. And in the middle of the pyramid are your offshore employees. And then at the bottom of the pyramid is AI. And your AI is like supposed to help enable all the other employees to really do a ton more. Like offshore and AI are not meant to eliminate. They're meant to multiply and expand your
accelerate
capacity. Exactly. AI is no different than what the printing press is to me. It's like the printing press comes along. It's like, oh, could we do books before? Yes, we could do books, but now we can do a lot of books. Yep. And so to me, AI is just a tool. It's not to say, hey, like the printing press did eliminate some kind of jobs, but it created so many more. Like there's a person working in a bookstore now because of the printing press. And like, I'm sure at the time the printing press was invented, they were like, I'm never going to be able to write a book again, but it creates a lot more jobs because a lot more people can do stuff.
For offshoring, I know the like common things, SDRs, accounting, accounts payable. Anyways, those are like common positions. What are you guys seeing people using AI for? Like what are they implementing now to be the accelerant for those things?
People are hiring automation engineers to like come into your business and then do automations, AI engineers.
When you say hiring, are they like W-2 employees or are these consultants that are coming into their business?
No, they're hiring them into their business. Yes, they're hiring these kind of people into their business because, you know, you get a little taste of what AI and automation can do for your business. You're just like, man, this could go to my HR department, to my marketing department.
Right.
And then it's just worth having them on your team, especially one, even if you're not that large of a team. And so we hire those people now.
Are you placing those types of positions?
Yeah.
As a staffing company or not staffing, but you are
recruiter. Yeah. We're placing those kind of positions. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is a lot of business owners, as we just talked earlier, we're busy. And so do I have the time to like go and really learn AI? Maybe I could, but there's other things I can do, like post on Twitter. So sometimes I need someone in my business that can do that for me.
What's the average size of a business that's like able to afford hiring that position?
Oh, I would say if you're doing $1 million in revenue, you could hire that position offshore. If you want to hire onshore, you probably need to be a $5 million business.
We have Ellie, I can't remember her last name, but within Tribe, she like her company, she's a fractional CTO. It's kind of, at least from what I understand she does, it's like that's kind of what she had been working on within her agency, and that company was growing. She's now pivoting actually into a SaaS product, which is really cool. It's called Yala, by the way, if you want to go look at it. It's Yala. It helps you map your internal software processes as you're building software. I'm sure I butchered that, Ellie. I'm really sorry, but it's a really cool product. Go check it out. Anyways, I think we have like more than a few of those within Tribe, right? Companies that are kind of working as agencies. Do you think more agencies like that will pop up?
Yeah.
Or Chris, do you think they'll actually just be like positions within companies?
Both. They're both going to pop up. Like it is the biggest thing for business since the internet.
Yeah.
And so everything that the internet did, I think AI will do, and it will create jobs that we're not thinking of right now. It will create positions we're not thinking about right now. It's huge. So people are doing both. It's like I see people who get AI consultants, automation consultants all the time. I think those businesses will grow.
Like him or not, Mark Cuban just came out, it was like yesterday or 2 days ago, and said that this type of work, like AI implementation for businesses, will be the biggest opportunity that we've seen in like decades, I think he said. So I think that that's the case too.
Trenton, what are you seeing people use AI for the most? Like what's maybe the first or second use case that you're seeing business owners really get value from?
Yeah, there's so many different things. I'm definitely seeing it in terms of like financials, whether that be financial forecasting or even like tax stuff is happening. Definitely seeing a lot of automations in terms of email follow-ups, and like CRMs could do some of this stuff before, but a lot more there. Chatbots are really popular now. Even voice agents I'm seeing being put in businesses. The voice agents are interesting because they're actually not bad, and probably, like they make little mistakes, but better than some others.
The two things that I'm seeing the most impactful, one is using AI as a way to help you create automations. So it's not that AI is doing the automation, but you're like, hey, I have these 4 systems. How do I build something that just creates a report that's generated every day? And then AI like helps you think through it. That's one. And then in the sales process, whether it's follow-up, whether it's after hours text responses, or an SDR, digital SDR, I'm definitely seeing it a lot in the sales side.
Customer service too. I think there's a million different ways that businesses are looking at how they do it. A lot of them are customer touch points though. Of how do we automate the customer touch points as much as possible so that we have to have less humans here.
All right. Hopefully you liked that episode. And if you've made it this far, you're either really committed or you're stuck doing yard work and you can't actually skip on your phone. So while I have you, the show is growing, but I have a favor to ask of you. Will you please help me grow the show? I want to reach more people. There's a couple things that you can do. Like and subscribe is the simplest thing. Obviously, you want to get notifications for when the next episode is coming out. But if you go the next step, will you leave me a review? 5-star on Spotify or Apple. What that does is it tells the algorithm that, oh, hey, this is a high value podcast because more people are leaving reviews for it, and it then pushes it out to more people. So that's why when people are like, will you like and subscribe and put a 5-star rating? It's not just to make themselves feel better. It's actually to get more exposure for the show. So if you do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.